Hey there, welcome to Blockhead, the podcast where cartoonists talk comics and just about everything else. My name is Geoff Grogan. I'm a cartoonist, animator, and illustrator, and for the next hour or so, I'll be your host in a series of conversations with comics creators about their lives, their work, and comics. So sit back and enjoy. Hello, and welcome back to Blockhead. It has been a good long while since our last episode, and I apologize for that. I hope that there are some of you still out there listening and interested in our interviews with great comics makers, because today we've got a terrific show. It'll be in two parts because it's a very long interview. Today I've got the great Kevin Mutch with me, and Kevin is going to talk about his brand new book called The Moon Prince, which is from Fantagraphics, and it's available wherever great graphic novels, comics, and books are sold. So be on the lookout for it. It is a wonderful adventure tale. It's like a 19th or 21st century version of a Jules Verne adventure, a great sci-fi fantasy adventure that takes place on the moon and features a lot of wild, crazy characters and adventures and evil pirate queens for Max and Molly, the stars of the show, Max and Molly being Kevin's kids, and they do their best to overcome whatever difficulties come their way, whether they're from evil pirate queens or elsewhere. So be on the lookout for it. It's available now wherever great books are sold and wherever great comics are sold. So go out and get your copy today. You will not be disappointed. It's one of the best books of the year, as far as I'm concerned, and it's a classic. It's going to last as long as any Jules Verne or Edgar Rice Burroughs tale has. I think it's right up there with them, and I think it won't be long now before you see a movie on Netflix or on Amazon Prime or wherever, whoever picks it up. I think it's going to make a great adventure film, just like Harry Potter. And Kevin's got books planned, follow-up books planned, so who knows? It could very well be the next Harry Potter. So anyway, look for it, pick it up today. So, I've been absentee. The show's been on hiatus, and hopefully it's back for a while now. And I've missed it, and I've heard from some of you that you've missed it too. And, there's a reason that I've been away, and part of the reason has to do with some personal stuff that's going on. The other part of it has to do with, the work that I've been doing, which has been really, really time-consuming. I mean, it's overwhelmed me. I worked on a film, which I've completed, and which is on YouTube. It's called John's, and if you want to see that film, look in the show notes. It's an animated film. It's about 9 minutes long. All done by me and hand-drawn and whatnot. Traditional old-school animation, which is what I love. I love making drawings move. And it's about the impact of one artist, Jasper Johns, upon a younger artist, me. And about an exhibition that I saw many, many, many years ago, but which has stayed with me. And so it's a film that is about memory. It's a film that's about art and the power of art. And in these dark days, I think talking about something like the power of art really is of great importance, because we forget, when we're surrounded by darkness, right, where the light comes from. And the light comes from wonderful people, right? It comes from love. It comes from a lot of different sources. It's important to look for the light in days like these, and art certainly offers that. Art and music and all of those great creative endeavors that human beings aspire to and work within. Well, art offers that. And so this is a film that I turned to making when I was really pretty depressed, and it really helped me get through that depression. It helped me be constructive rather than destructive. it helped me channel that, and it also helped me contemplate how there are other things in life, that we need to focus on. One of those great things, man, is art. It's and when I say art, I mean it in the largest possible sense, right? Wherever you find inspiration, wherever you're inspired by the work of another, right? Their creativity, their ingenuity, their skill, their craftsmanship, all those kinds of things play together to make for an incredibly uplifting experience. And so this is a film about how that happened to me, and working on it really did that for me. So I hope that you look for it. It's if you go to YouTube and you look up Geoff Grogan's Blockhead, and you look up John's, right? You should be able to find it. But the link will be in the show notes. It's also on my Instagram account, at Grogan Geoff, on my Facebook page as well, which is, I think it's just Geoff Grogan, but I don't remember. Anyway, you'd have to look for it there. But and I'm on Substack too. Oh gosh, I'm on Substack. And if you look up Pencilhead, you might find me. I don't have many subscribers. My social media reach is terrible. And so share whatever you've got, and if you're interested, look for all of my stuff, because I every artist wants to find an audience and is hoping to find an audience and for their work, and I really do think my film deserves an audience, and I'm proud of it, and so I hope that you look for it. It meant a lot to me to make it, and I really did it for no other reason than I needed to make it, and so I hope you'll check it out. Okay, so that's what I've been doing, and I'm working on other stuff. I'm working on a lot of stuff. I'll talk about it at the end of the show. Let's get to the show, right? So here we go. The great Kevin Mutch, terrific raconteur, terrific storyteller, a terrific cartoonist, and a good pal. And here he is. Without further ado, Kevin Mutch and myself in conversation. I will see you on the other end. Cheers. So here we are. You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm
I, I,
good.
I think, did you hurt your back?
Yeah, I heard it pretty bad. I was lifting multiple times. I lifted this ladder, like this 24-foot ladder, and
Oh,
I shouldn't have been doing that. Um, I'm I'm not used to being 65, It's like it's crazy. And so anyway, the last 3 days I've just been on a reclining chair, and Deb's been taking care of me constantly. I haven't been able to
sorry
do.
to hear that.
Yeah, it'll pass, It just takes time. You just got to rest, and it'll be over with soon. All things shall pass, man. But that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about this. And I don't know if I don't know if I'll be posting it on YouTube or not, because I often don't, I mean, video wise, with the video, but um anyway, so in case we do, if people can see this, the moon prints from Fantagraphics. Oh my God, Kevin. Oh my God.
It's
This
pretty heavy, huh?
Talk about a back problem picking this up. No, this is just such a triumph. I mean,
Oh, thanks.
you must feel so incredibly gratified to see this printed by a company like Fantagraphics, after all the years you put into it. It's amazing. It's just amazing. And
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I'm so totally well, okay, so people, obviously we've started the podcast. So it's not a live podcast, so but
Yeah.
just so people who are listening, if you're not aware, Kevin Mutch is a cartoonist, a graphic designer, and a painter, and a multidisciplinary artist, I guess we would say, who has been working in comics for a number of years now, many years now, and
25.
25, man, 25 years, and has had now at least two things published by Fantagraphics. One was Fantastic Life, volume.
No, it was the Rough Pearl.
Oh, the Rough Pearl. That's right. The Rough
Yeah.
Pearl. It was the Rough Pearl. And that was part one, right, of an ongoing project. And then because you're still working on the follow-up story to that. And then The Moon Prince, which is out this summer. which is a whole story in and of itself. Just the making of it's a whole story in and of itself, and we'll get to that in a moment. But this has been The Moon Prince has been received by critics and by the public alike with enormous acclaim, and deservedly so, because I'm in the middle of it right now. I'm up to chapter 5. And of course, I followed it when it was online all those years ago, but reading it in one collection like this just drives home how intricate and exciting and engaging the story is. It's just amazing. Plus, there are all these allegories that tie into the life that we know today. So it's really so pertinent and so important, I think, a work. Kevin, where did the Moon Prince begin?
Well, it's always tough to draw a line, and sort of say, here was the beginning.
Mhm.
Um, there definitely was a moment, like a kind of eureka moment, where I said to myself, oh, there's the idea for a book. Um, but there was a lot of things that fed into it, and especially things that I came across as a kid, influences that I had as a kid.
Mhm.
And in terms of where did it start for me as an adult, it was uh, just for a little bit of context. I'm a dad of two now adult kids,
Mhm.
and have been married to my wife, Melissa. In fact, we just celebrated our 28th anniversary a couple of days ago.
Yeah, it's
So
amazing.
we've been married for a while. We had two kids, and by about 2008, they were little kids, but no longer toddlers.
Mhm.
And I was thinking to myself, oh, I wish I could introduce them to some of the same things that really turned me on to reading as a kid. Because we love reading. My wife and I, both have too many books. And we're like, I think like most parents, we've been a little bit concerned, thinking, um, is reading the way we read as kids still going to be the same thing now,
Mhm.
given the screens and the games and everything else, the distractions?
Mhm.
Anyway, that was in my mind. And one night I was sitting there watching TV, back when on channel surfing was still something I did, because now I'm just addicted to YouTube videos and I just do that every night. But one night I was sitting there channel surfing in 2000, I think it was 2008,
Mhm.
and I came across um, some old movie channel, might have been Turner Classic Movies, and they were showing, I think it was from the mid 60s. There was this old version of a British film adaptation
Mhm.
of H.G. Wells' The First Men in the Moon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it was great. It was, even though it was the 60s, it already felt a lot like steampunk.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because they had sort of self-consciously, like there was a little tiny bit of irony, and they sort of self-consciously set this thing in the late 19th century
Hmm.
with a little bit of tongue-in-cheek.
Sure.
And so there were these great, hilarious, cheesy sets like paper mache moon,
Hmm.
and they
Hmm.
land there in their cavorite contraption and set foot on the moon to claim it for the British Empire, and they literally plant a Union Jack.
Oh, jeez. Incredible.
And I was just sitting there loving it, thinking, oh, this is like proto steampunk, I guess. I was just really responding to that.
Hmm.
And then I thought about how it really reminded me as well of some Edgar Rice Burroughs books that I had
Hmm.
read as a kid.
Hmm.
Particularly, there were a couple that he had written set on the moon. There was the Moon Maid and the Moon Men, a couple like that. So I was sitting there thinking about that and thinking about how much I loved those books as a
Hmm.
kid. I didn't read all the Tarzan books, but I had read like all of the John Carter of Mars books,
Sure.
all of the Venus books, all of the Pellucidar books. And um, when I was reading them, they were already like probably mostly 40 or 50 years old, if not older.
Sure.
Um, and I'd come across the Ace paperback editions from the
Mhm.
60s in
Oh yeah.
used bookstores,
Hmm.
and they were a dime you could
Yeah.
get them for
Yeah.
with the Roy Krenkel covers and the Frank
Yeah.
Frazetta covers.
Yeah. They're great.
And so I had a real love of some of those books. I might have read 4 and 5 times because I would
Wow.
reread them. Yeah. So I was thinking back as I watched this movie, I was thinking back to how much I had loved I think the term for them technically in scholarly circles of this material would be planetary romances.
Oh, okay.
So I was thinking back to how much I'd loved these things as a kid, and I thought, I bet I have a few still in a box in the basement. I'm gonna go find one, dig it up. That's something I can show my kids that I'm sure, given how quickly I fell in love with them as an 8-year-old, this will probably be something that's good for my son and daughter to take a look at. Maybe they'll be turned on to it.
Hmm.
And I found a couple in the basement. I was able to dig them up in a box and have a look.
Hmm.
And I opened, I think it might have been Tarzan at the Earth's Core, something like this.
Hmm.
And I opened this paperback up to any given page. And the page that I opened to this was years ago, so I'm paraphrasing what I vaguely remember, but
Hmm.
the page that I opened to was something to the effect of the dark-skinned savage
Hmm.
bowed before me
Hmm.
and admitted defeat, you know.
Hmm.
And I kept flipping, going, holy cow.
Yeah.
And every page I flipped to, this was basically it. It was this uh, Northern European guy
Right.
um, conquering the savages around him and, building empires. And I thought about all of the other series of planetary romances that I'd read, and not just by Edgar Rice Burroughs. I mean, there were books by Otis Adelbert Klein and Ralph Milne Farley. They always had three names. Um,
To
it
lend
was always,
authenticity.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it was always the same kind of trip. It was always like
Hmm.
somehow I wound up on this planet or in India or in Africa, some place like this. And oh, it's exotic, and oh, they're savages, and I'll use my superior technology to build an empire. So it was like completely colonialist, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Um, and when I was 10, that just totally jazzed me up. I was like, oh, I could so easily imagine being that guy, having that adventure. And then looking at it, whatever it was, 40 years later,
Hmm.
and thinking about showing it to my kids, I was like, I cannot show this to my
Sure.
kids.
Right.
I mean, I sort of considered like, can I show this to my kids as a lesson?
Uh-huh.
Like, here's
Yeah.
how things used to be. But I thought, I mean, I don't even like the idea of doing that when they're that young
Yeah.
because it's just, I don't think it's good for them.
Yeah. No.
Um,
Yeah.
there's even been research that that's not good for
Sure.
really young kids.
Yeah.
Um, so I thought, I can't show them this. What a shame. And as much as I loved it, I'm just sitting here appalled. And then I had the idea, the thought popped into my head because back then I think it was shortly after. Remember the Wind Done Gone?
No, I don't know that one.
It was kind of like a postmodern parody of Gone with the Wind,
Oh,
but
okay.
told from the perspective of the housekeeper, I think.
Oh, okay. Very interesting.
Yeah. So it was like, what would that story look like from the other perspective
Sure.
instead of being all about the people in charge at the top? What
Mm.
would it be like from that perspective? So that was in the air at the time. And I think even like Wicked had come out, which was sort of similar, right? It's like, well, how
Hmm.
does this look from the other perspective?
Sure. Hmm.
What would the Wicked Witch's perspective have been?
Right.
So I guess it just popped into my head to think, what would it be like to tell a story like this from the perspective of people who are not in charge of society and never could be,
Hmm.
strictly because of who they happen to have been born as.
Hmm.
And immediately I just thought, great, I'll do a story about my two kids going to the moon.
Hmm.
Or characters with the same names. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I
And it's,
didn't,
yeah.
my kids have their personalities, and the characters in this book are not necessarily my kids,
Hmm.
but they have the same names, and my kids posed for them. I had my
Right.
kids pose
Yeah.
so that they would feel like part of the story.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. That's great. I mean, what a wonderful idea. But continue, please. The story's fascinating.
So I sat down, I wrote up a quick little 12-page treatment just by hand and showed it to my wife and told her that I had this thought that, we could just take all these pictures of the kids posing and she could pose. She said, my wife's an actress. Um, and I could pose, someone would take a picture of me, and we'd use all this photographic reference to really make everybody feel like it had like a little bit of an element of realism to it. In
Hmm.
particular, an element of uh, taking part. I really wanted the kids to feel like this was something that they could connect to on that level. And so I had that 12-page treatment. I showed it to my wife. She was immediately on board. I asked the kids if they would be happy posing, and they said sure, but they had no idea what they were getting themselves into because they had to pose for 4 years.
Oh my gosh. And the changes must have been, I mean, 4 years when you're a kid, from 8 to 12, from 12 to 16. Come on.
Yeah, when you look at the pictures I was taking of the kids when they were first starting, they were still pretty little.
Uh-huh.
And then by the end they weren't, because we put together wardrobes like costumes. And my wife put those together and did a great job. But by the time we finished, the kids were like totally outgrowing these clothes.
Sure, of course. Oh my gosh. Did they ever, did your kids ever, come on, Dad, I don't want to do that.
Oh yeah.
All the time.
Especially after the first couple of years, they were just like,
Ugh.
really? We're going to do this again? Because we would do it sort of like maybe, I don't know, it might have been one or two Saturdays a month.
Uh-huh. Oh
And
my.
I would try and get like 5 or 10 pages worth of pictures,
Hmm.
which would probably, I think in the end, it worked out to like 16,000 photographs.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
16,000 photographs. Oh my.
yeah, because you'll take a picture and you'll be like, now turn your head a little this way, or.
Yeah. Sure. And
And
then,
it's
yeah.
it's not an ideal way to work either. Like I work or have worked for years in one or aspect or another of the photography business.
Right.
And the music business, the photography part of the music business for packaging and
Hmm.
posters and things like that. And you're used to working with or watching other people who are the photographers because I was working in post production.
Hmm.
Um, but I used to have a photo studio before that I ran. So I just knew all about this stuff, and you're used to watching people work with really good equipment. But
Yeah.
I was shooting all these pictures of my kids on my iPhone,
Yeah.
which is handy.
Sure.
But I mean, it's not exactly like a good photo studio when you're shooting in your basement studio, and
Right.
it's just kind of like you're using the little desk lamps and things like this, and your iPhone. And the the iPhone has a really this is kind of techy, but the iPhone has like a really little lens,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
everything comes out kind of like distorted, and you always have to like if you're relying on this to base your drawing on, you always have to be mentally compensating,
Yes.
saying,
It's not
no, that
curved. Yeah.
yeah, it's everything looks, especially if you're kind of close to it, it looks like a goldfish bowl,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
fisheye view. Yeah,
Perspective is all messed up and whatever. Yeah.
yeah. But still, the kids were troopers.
Hmm.
They made it all the way to the end, and my son had to take thousands of pictures of me, mostly posing as like pirates,
Hmm.
because there's pirates in the story
Sure.
up on the moon.
Yes.
So I had to play like every background character in various pirate get-ups, and my poor son. would stand there while I like put on different pirate vests and pirate hats and held a cutlass and said, "Yar." And he was just so over it by the end, he's
Yeah.
just like, "Oh God, Dad,
Yeah,
this is."
yeah, I've had enough. Well, it took, so you said 4 years of photographs, but the book
Yeah.
itself has taken how long to complete? How long did it take to complete?
Well, for any cartoonists listening to this might sound familiar what I'm about to say, but I spent the first year and a half before I even started taking the photographs for reference. I spent a year and a half storyboarding the thing. I wouldn't say thumbnailing it because when I when I write, I'm doing something very similar to thumbnailing, except I'm doing it on a sheet of like laser printer paper, 8.5 by 11 printer paper. And so I just sit there and sketch out the panel layout and scribble down the dialogue and sketch out the rough poses. And then I'll scribble things out. I did the moonprints with a pen,
Mhm.
which looking back on it was kind of like, what was I thinking doing it with a pen? Because you can't really change it as much. So if I wanted to change something, I would have to like cut out another piece of paper and tape it down. And you
Okay.
know, yeah. But anyway, I did it like that. And in fact, I have sitting in front of me, I have the stack of. Let me see. How do you
Yeah.
do this on your on? If I turn this, we'll just show you. Let me know if you
Yeah,
see
yeah.
it.
Yeah, I think so. Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. Now
You
that,
see that?
yes,
That's
that's,
the stack. And
oh
then
my,
next to it is what it boiled down to.
yep.
You see that?
Oh my God. Incredible. Incredible.
So doing that took a year and a half just to create this big stack. And I, at the beginning, I was so sure it would be like a 120-page book because I just done my first book, which was Fantastic Life, which was around 120 pages. And I thought, all right, I'll do this 120-page book. I'll put a couple of years into it, and the kids will have this experience. And won't that be good? And then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, oh, I want to have these other things happen. So maybe it'll be a series.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this will be the first book and I'll set it on the moon. And then I'll do some other books.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if it succeeds and finds an audience, I'll do a whole series of like, well, a book for every planet.
Yeah.
So that's what I sat down thinking after I was about 60, 70 pages into it. And I realized that my pacing, for whatever reason, was such that this was going to be a lot longer than I'd initially thought.
Oops.
Yeah. I think partially because I was getting into the world building, as they do in
Yeah.
these types of fantasy books. And I kept like writing notes and coming up with like these other characters that I wanted to include and thinking about like how the series of books I'd read as a kid, the planetary romance books, they were always there'd always be 5 or 6 of these books
Mm-hmm.
that connected.
Mm-hmm.
So the more I worked on it, the thicker the pile of storyboard pages got until it got to the point where it was 420 pages. And I
Mm-hmm.
had just finally wrapped up the moon story, you know. And may I just say the review, I forget which review it was, but one of the reviews used the word lengthy.
Indeed.
But in fantasy, like that's almost
Yeah,
it's this is I would call this a fantasy story or science fantasy, something like that.
sure.
But in fantasy, nowadays, if you walk into, here in Canada, for example, we have a chain of bookstores called Indigo that's kind of like the Canadian version of Barnes and Noble. And
Mm-hmm.
if you go in and look at these sections of the store, you'll see that the books these days are all really thick. They're all 400 and 500 pages.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, they're mostly prose novels, but they're big bricks.
Sure.
Um, so I thought to myself, well, that's not a bad thing as long as I can actually produce this and get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And, I showed it to my agent when it was about 120 pages in. So not even a third of the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I showed it to my agent and he was like, oh, okay, I'll start shopping this around to publishers. And I was kind of like, maybe let's just wait because I I would hate to have somebody say, okay, we're going to publish this, but you need to have it ready in a year.
Right. Right.
Because I was doing 50 pages a year. That was like how it's taking me a week a page
Right.
basically to do
Sure.
the
Absolutely.
final art.
Yeah.
So once I had the storyboards written and it photographed the kids and was starting it on the pages in earnest, by that point I was 5 or 6 years into it
Hmm.
and had the first bit done, fairly well polished up, but just realized, you know, it's going to need to be um, more or less finished before I can start shopping this thing around. And that's when I had a sinking feeling and thought, that's going to be 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in fact, it was more like 15.
Which at the time, I mean, to anybody who's younger may not, but for those of us who are at a certain age, 15 years now is like a wink of an eye. And back in the day, 10 years seemed like, oh my God, 10 years. How am I going to do
Yeah.
that? But now it's like you look back at it and say, well, 15 years, what's 15 years?
Yeah. Except when I think, do I have another 15 to do the
Right?
second part? Because in the end, when I was writing this, it boiled down to there's no way I'm going to do 9 of these. That's ridiculous.
Hmm.
But I thought, okay, trilogy. It's all about trilogies, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I thought, okay, well, I'll do a second part and then a third part. And instead of having one on every planet, I'll just go straight from the moon to Mars.
Hmm.
Because you gotta love Mars.
Yeah, you gotta love Mars. Of course.
And then I thought, oh, and then I don't know, the last one can be on one of the moons of Jupiter because I kept, and then I was thinking about there was like in the 60s and 70s when there was a renewal of interest in the old planetary romance books.
Mhm.
This is part and parcel of like a whole bunch of nostalgia. Like Star Wars, for example, was
Oh yeah,
based on what was it Flash Gordon or the other
sure.
one?
The series of Flash Gordon with Buster Crabbe, that played a
Yeah,
huge
yeah.
influence. Yeah.
Yeah, and so in the 60s, people were writing, especially Lynn Carter.
Uh-huh.
People were writing these kinds of like neo planetary romances.
Hmm.
And so Lynn Carter wrote a series about Jandar of Callisto,
Oh.
which was Callisto being one of the moons of Jupiter. So, and I read them as a kid and loved them. And so I thought, I'll set one on a moon of Jupiter. I'll set it on Callisto.
Hmm.
So the second book that I'm actually, believe it or not, working on
Oh
already.
my God.
It's called, it's called, I think it's going to be called something of Mars. I don't know exactly what. I was going to call it the Escape to Mars or the Caves of Mars or the Ghosts of Mars, something like this.
Yeah.
But then you Google them and they've all been used in one form or another. And
Mm.
by the way, since I came up with the name The Moon Prince for the first book, now there's been 5 books come out in the last few years, all called The Moon Prince.
I mean, isn't
There was one came out the same week.
oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't there some kind of geez, I mean, because I know your book, you were serializing your book on Facebook years ago under the title The Moon Prince, and you published, I have it actually here, self-published, the little Moon Prince
Oh
book
yeah.
one. Yeah, you published this a number of years ago, and so, I mean, isn't there some kind of copyright infringement with that?
Not with book titles.
Oh, okay. Book titles are free to mess around with.
Yeah.
I'll call my
Yeah.
next book The Moon Prince.
Go ahead.
No.
You're in good company. But I
Yeah.
thought to myself, gee to God, these people must have like tried to get like or I don't know, maybe people no longer try to get the URL. Like maybe
Yeah.
people don't worry about um, websites as much these days.
Yeah, maybe
But I
not.
would have thought surely they would have Googled it and noticed that there was like themoonprince.com
Yeah.
going back 15 years
Yeah. Oh
with
my gosh.
all of these posts. Anyway,
Well, okay, before we go too far afield, so this book, you're following up this book with another book that you're working on now. Now, what about Molly and Max? Because they're all grown up, they're not posing for the pictures anymore.
It's an excellent question. And another question is, how long do I think I'm going to live?
The same question comes to my mind about me, myself. How much time
Like
do I have?
we're about the same age. I just turned 63.
I'm 65.
Um, yeah, so we're a
Yep, sure.
couple of gray beards.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm already at the point where I'm like, I need to take a little break from this. My, eyes get tired.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm not sure that I could really. I think I'm going to be able to write it,
Hmm.
but I'm not sure it'll ever get drawn. I just want to make sure it's all written because the Moon Prince itself, it has an ending, but it's actually not the ending. And there's all of this stuff that I've thought of and developed while I was working on it that I think really needs to be part of the piece.
Wow. So, and so you've plotted it all out.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I wrote treatments for the other books, and now last 6 months or so, I've been storyboarding the second book. So I'm about a third of the way through it. I'm up to page 150.
But you're also in the middle of, and this is something else that I want to touch on. All the while you're working on the Moon Prince, you're working on other stuff. You've been working on other stuff all this time.
Yeah, I'm a little overextended, gotta say. Uh, for one thing, the whole time, like and I'm sure you completely get this too, right? Like you buy an old house,
Yeah. Oh God.
and
Don't
oh
get me
my God,
started.
the projects never end, right?
Oh, it's never ending. Yep, it is never ending.
So
And
I spent 16 years in New Jersey fixing up an old house.
mhm.
Then we finally got it fixed up and immediately sold it and moved to Canada, where we're fixing up another old house.
Oh man. Oh man.
Yeah.
I want to
So
avoid that when we sell this one. But yeah.
that's a big chunk of your life. And then I paint.
Yes.
And in fact, if people said to me, "What do you do?" the first thing out of my mouth would be, "I'm a visual artist."
Yes.
And then I would start talking about my paintings,
Yes.
um, which is, um, it's great, and I love it, but it's also a huge chunk of time.
Yeah.
And then I'm doing another book too,
Right.
which is, um, God, I can't even think of the name of my own book. Like a Ninja.
Like a ninja. Okay.
Yeah. So that's a sequel to The Rough
Of Pearl.
Pearl.
Yeah.
And The Rough Pearl itself was a sequel to Fantastic Life. So that's another trilogy. So that's written and storyboarded, but I have to find time to do that art. And again, now, you get into your 60s and you're kind of like, I'm not sure if I'm going to do all of these. I
Right.
might have them well underway, but I don't know if there's time.
Yeah.
So, you know,
I hear you. I'm of the same mind. You reach a certain, when you're 30, it seems as though you have the whole universe out in front of you, and it's endless. And then you get to be where we're at, and all of a sudden you realize, uh-oh, maybe 25 years if I'm lucky. And in 25 years, what can I get done? And maybe
yeah.
it'll be 15 because if you look at your genetics, you look at, your family history and you go, boy, oh boy, I got to try to do what I need to do now, and get it done quick. Um,
Oh, sure, yeah.
you know, it,
And I'm even timing things in terms of like cognitive decline,
sure.
right?
Oh my God.
Like, like I'm thinking like, okay, I'll do the writing first
Yeah.
because the drawing I
Different.
think I can do longer,
Yeah.
but I'm not even sure because it's fine work, detailed
Hmm.
work,
Hmm.
and it's trickier now than it was for me 10 years ago even.
Hmm.
But I'm kind of like thinking I'll leave the painting for last because in my mind I'm thinking about Willem de Kooning,
Hmm.
with like
Oh yeah,
debil
sure.
debilitating Alzheimer's,
Yes.
painting away every day.
But the paint,
And
beautiful. Yeah.
beautiful. My favorite work of de Kooning's was the last 15 years of his life.
Yeah.
Elegant.
You're very elegant. Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree. I totally agree. There's something about there's a different it's a different channel in the mind, when
yeah,
you're working visually, right? And
yeah,
so I think we're both familiar with the differentiation between writing and what is left brain versus right brain. I don't know if it actually, if that works anymore, but the idea that you're channeling a totally different part of the brain when you're working visually, especially if you're doing like what de Kooning was doing, which was, a very immediate approach to visualizing and to moving material around. You don't have to be thinking analytically. You have to be thinking visually, you know?
yeah. And it's funny because here I am doing comics, and I've always kind of thought of comics as like, as we do, thought of it as a combination of these two separate fields of writing and drawing. And um, then I'm making visual art that's really coming out of conceptualist
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
traditions,
Yeah.
which again is like a combination of ideas and images, right?
Yeah.
In fact, there's what was it? I think there was like a journal called Art and Language in the UK.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Um, and working on conceptual pieces, because I've been making digital art,
Hmm.
making my work digitally since I was about 30.
Right.
And now I have like a big body of those things. But of course, it's like that's experimental work that's completely uncommercial,
Yeah.
right? Like you can't, nobody's interested in, or very few people, galleries are interested in showing digital work. I think I read some analysis
Mm.
of contemporary art practices, right, in terms of like what was selling. And
Mm.
this is contemporary art, not like hotel art or popular art or things like that.
Sure.
So in the contemporary world, it was like 94% was either painting or sculpture. And I think it was like more than 60% was painting
Hmm.
and 20, 30% sculpture. And then everything else was just like a tiny little afterthought.
Yeah.
So here I am with all of this digital work that I'm doing at the same time I've been doing these comics. And meanwhile, AI has come up
Yeah.
and everyone has a real problem
Hmm.
in comics in particular with it.
Hmm.
In visual art, it's a different story because it's like in contemporary art, so much of what gets done is experimental anyway.
Hmm.
But in comics, it's really problematic. And I'm thinking to myself, um, I'm not that interested anymore in working digitally as a visual artist,
Hmm.
both because of that, because of the politics around it, which I don't want to sound, like I've been cowed or something like that. But I also, at my age, I don't need a lot of people like coming on my Facebook page telling me I'm a scab or something,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I know. It's
So
crazy.
I thought, anyway, it's not even a challenging field at this point because the AI does all the stuff that used to be fun and hard and challenging to do
Right. Yeah.
for years, which is how I wound up making a living at it in the music business, was because I got into it in fine art. And then it turned out to be a field that was very difficult. It was hard to find people who were like good with computers and good with art.
We're talking about the early 1990s.
Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly.
Hmm.
So, what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to take a lot of these digital images, which are really unmarketable in a fine art context anyway, and I'm going to paint. And so, to get back to the kind of analogy of like doing the writing first
Hmm.
in comics, in my visual art, I sort of feel the same way. Like the idea part is almost like the writing of it,
Hmm.
the conceptualism of it.
Hmm.
And then the formal realization of it, as we would say in
Hmm.
our little field, would be, in this case, turning them into paintings.
Hmm.
Whereas before I would have said prints, I'll turn them into prints, whatever.
Sure.
But now I'm thinking I'll just turn them into paintings because I've got a couple of hundred of these that are really ready to go. And if I'm lucky enough to live that long, that'll be nice. And if I devolve into, somebody that has severe cognitive decline, I can still paint. So I'm structuring it all that way. So I think the last thing will be painting.
Yeah.
And the first thing that I'll do now is finish all the writing I have to do.
Yeah.
And in the middle, I'll try and finish at least the like a ninja book.
Man, it's incredible the way you're very structured. Even going back to the way you did the moon prints and everything, it's very structured. I wish I could be that structured. I'm terrible at it because I've never. I'm thinking about it. It makes absolutely perfect sense to your plan. I don't know if I could ever work that way, but nevertheless, it's fascinating. It's really
It,
interesting. I'm sure
it
it'll
would probably get me diagnosed as being somewhere on the spectrum.
work.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we're all, I mean, anybody who's in the visual arts, I suppose, to some degree,
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
arts, one way or the other, we're all a little, you know, on the
Yeah.
spectrum, as it were.
Everyone I worked with in digital imaging, we always said that having OCD was a job requirement.
Yeah.
And, it was said lightheartedly, but we were all pretty diagnosable as having a certain amount of OCD.
Well, you have to be, I mean, there's such a degree of obsession, right? And
Yeah.
obsession just doesn't feel like the right word to me either, because it's so organic to who most of us are. Most of us
Yeah.
as artists are. It's so much an organic part of who we've always been from childhood on, this making of stuff. However we choose to make it, whether we make it with material and hands and paper or pen or goopy material that we can mush around or digitally, we all have this innate characteristic, which is I need to make stuff now. I need to make it and I can't get away from it. I can't stop. And it, it's so much a part of our lives that obsession is almost too exterior a word. It's something else. It's part of our skin. It's part of the flesh that we have. It's built.
Yeah, if I don't make work for a few days or something, even if I'm on vacation,
Yes.
after a few days I get a pit in my stomach
Yes.
and I start feeling like I'm not validating my existence or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. Exactly. Why am I here? Exactly. I've been on the recliner for 3 days now, and that is like my wife. I keep getting up to do stuff, and my wife keeps, "Will you sit down because you're not going to get better if you don't." Right? And I can't do it, because it's just like I can't just sit here. Anyway, but that's the way we are, you know. Um, so and this goes to one of the things that I think is so wonderful about the moon prints, and I think is going to make it, and I've said this about it already. I think it's an adventure. It's a contemporary adventure classic. I think it's on the same level, you know, as all of the books you've talked about from your past, but also more contemporary, approaches. It's a classic that I think people are going to reach to and read over and over again. And one of the reasons that I think it's going to last is how intricate it is, how many enormously interesting characters it are populate this book, and how it like very elegantly, and you used that word before, elegant, but this is I think appropriate, elegantly kind of traverses a lot of different issues of concern, whether it's racism, whether it's colonialism, whether it's, slavery, whether it's just the antipathy one group of people have to another, the exploitation of one group of people by another. All of these things are approached in such a natural, elegant way, as to be. I never feel as though you're standing on a lectern, and lecturing me about these issues the way I think some strident kind of work might do. This instead involves me in it in such a way that I'm I'm thoroughly with it. I'm thoroughly engaged with the story, and I'm engaged with the concerns, and I'm engaged with the adventure of it. It's all like in such a way I feel it's a blend of just all of these, qualities, that make it so pertinent, and I think also just such a lasting achievement. you know. Um,
Oh, thanks, man.
yeah, it really is something that and it's also beautiful. The artwork is really, really beautiful. The coloring of it, is, from a visual perspective, it's just so, there are moments in it that are just astoundingly beautiful, in terms of the artwork.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
yeah, I just finished this morning, this moment when Max and Graco enter the Fireflies cave, and the fireflies are all lit up all over the place. It's just so stunning, this moment where they're all lit. It's just before the end of part four, I think, chapter four.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's just exquisite. Yeah, it's a beautiful piece of work on so many levels, you know.
Well, thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that made it a little bit of cross pollination to work on is, I mean, first of all, I work digitally in the fine art, and then I do the comics digitally too. So in other
Hmm.
words, like I'm drawing on a um, not a Cintiq because those things are too bloody expensive, but on a Chinese version of a Cintiq that's only
Oh,
like 500 or 600 bucks, and
oh,
that's
nice.
just as good. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm drawing directly onto the computer,
Yeah.
and I'm in Photoshop, which I've spent 30 years in Photoshop all day. So, it just becomes possible to bring to bear all of these tricks and techniques
Hmm.
that you pick up in the working world doing digital imaging, for example.
Hmm. Hmm.
And you can think, oh, I know how I would have tried to get the color to look this way 20 years ago before I really got deeply into digital imaging.
Hmm.
But now that I'm really into digital imaging and I know what we do in the music business, I'm going to tackle it this way instead. And it's nice to be able to have that cross pollination back and forth.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I've been working digitally since 2017.
Uh-huh.
I mean, when I say working digitally, that's kind of truncated version. I've been working on an iPad since 2017 and drawing on the iPad since then. And prior to that, of course, I worked with Photoshop and all those kinds of things. Of course, it's just not part of what we all had to do, right? But I really love I miss the paper, the object, but at the same time, I've got a house full of crap that I've got to pack up and move or store or whatever. And so this is great because I don't have that. And on the one hand, you don't have the fine art object to sell, you don't have the original to sell. But so what? I've got, it saves a lot of space, but it's a seamless process, you know. And whereas it used to be when you started, there were people who were like, "Oh my God, you can't, drawing digitally is not drawing, blah blah blah," and it's all this kind of stuff, all that kind of resistance to it. And now, it's just like normalized, to use a word. It's just
I
become.
remember the moment that happened for me, the
Mhm.
moment where I felt normalized about it.
Mhm.
Uh, because, yeah, for years, I mean, you go on like the old Comics Journal message board,
Yes,
and
right.
there'd be all these people like hating on Photoshop and
Yes.
hating on digital inking and things like this, which sounds a little silly now, but
Yeah.
back then it was like a major thing.
Yeah.
And I remember one time coming across some video of Mobius in
Hmm.
his old age, not long before he passed away. And he had vision trouble, so he
Hmm.
started working digitally.
Hmm.
And it was just Mobius drawing directly on a digitizing monitor.
Hmm.
And I just thought, okay, that's fine now. Like that's gives it the okay. Nobody,
There you go.
if Mobius is doing that, nobody
Yeah.
can say anything.
Right, exactly, exactly. So all that resistance is proved. I mean, but that's the way new technology always is, right? When you start using a new tool, people are, oh, it's cheating, it's crap. And there's always that resistance until people finally say, hey, there's a lot of uses for this, or until, the world just demands that color digitally because, that's just the way everybody's working now, right? That's the way printers are
Yeah.
working, you know.
And although, to be fair to all of the people that were so deeply conservative about digital coloring back in the 90s, let's say, to be fair, if you look back at that now, there was like an initial period where those tools were getting adopted, and the work went, I I think arguably like a little too far in
Hmm.
the direction of, boy, look what I can do with this now. And you look at some of that stuff and
Yeah.
it just looks over rendered.
Hmm.
Um, I came across one of the humanoids editions of a Mobius book
Hmm.
years ago, and thought, oh my God, this doesn't even look like Mobius anymore. Like everyone looks like they're made out of rubber,
Oh.
and colors are so hyper saturated. And
Hmm.
where's the line? Like I'm looking for that, beautiful French line that Mobius had.
Hmm.
And then I realized I was looking at like a recolored edition
Oh, yeah.
because I came across an old version of it in a used bookstore. And I'm like, oh, this
Yeah.
is the right color
Yeah.
because it's beautiful and it's subtle and it's not overpowering the line work.
Hmm.
So I can understand why people were bugged
Hmm.
at the time.
Sure.
And to be honest, I can also understand why people are up in arms right now about AI
Oh, yeah.
because it's not, to go back to your point about tools, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I've heard other people make this same point that I'm about to make, but I agree with it, which is that it's not a tool
Hmm.
at a certain point. I think you can use just about anything as a tool.
Hmm.
But the problem is, and I noticed this, it was even before AI came in, working in Photoshop all the time, around 15 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago, Photoshop started to have tools that they referred to as the content aware tools.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So these different brushes, like the healing brush, things like that. I don't want to get too into the technical weeds here, but they would start making decisions for you that
Yes.
previously you had to know exactly what you wanted and
Mhm.
point to it in Photoshop and say, now I want you to take 14 pixels from here,
Yeah.
put them over here, and that'll be that. And at a certain point, it started to become, okay, I'm going to click here and see what happens. I'm going to
Mhm.
see what it decides to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember the first time I tried that tool, the healing brush tool, when it first came out, I had a little chill because I was like, for the first time in many years of using this, I don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't predict it. I'm not deciding.
Hmm.
And that was the thin edge of the wedge. And that was already, 15 years before AI started coming out for image generation, commercial image generation. And now it's at the point where um, it's so ubiquitous in the imaging business. I don't know that comics people really get that.
Hmm.
I don't, because there are millions, most Photoshop users are working as production artists,
Hmm.
and there's millions of them,
Right.
working in the photography business on various levels.
Hmm.
There are probably 100 people making a living doing that for every illustrator
Hmm.
using Photoshop. And in comics, we hear about the use of these digital tools and increasingly AI in the context of illustration.
Hmm.
And there's almost this sense of we can stop this.
Hmm. Right. Right.
But in reality, it's already, the
Yeah.
genie is completely out of the bottle
Yeah.
in the case of the vast majority of people using it, which
Yeah.
are production artists.
Yes.
And just in the last year, the major music companies, that I worked for have all laid people off and said we have to get ready for AI. So their creative departments are being trimmed way back,
Hmm.
and then they have these people that formerly would have said, okay, we're going to freelance this out. We'll send it to a digital illustrator or a digital artist to work on. Those are just getting cut out. Like, I mean, it's okay for me because I was planning to retire. Uh, well, actually, this exact summer.
Hmm.
Um, so the timing for me, it's almost like creepy. You're almost like, that was weird the way that worked out so well for me. But then
Yeah.
you think about like the hundreds of people that you know
Yeah.
that have mortgages and
Yeah.
kids and
Yes.
stuff. And in a way, it's kind of like worse than for a lot of people. A lot of people in comics are not making their living at comics.
No, most people aren't.
Yeah. And so you can just choose not to participate in this. You
Hmm.
can say, well, that's fine. I'm going to do it the way I do it. And that's for
Yeah.
me the pleasure and the love of it. But if you're working in a field where it's like you were making good money,
Yeah.
uh, making a living for your family and paying for your mortgage, and then all of a sudden the rug is pulled out from under you. I know a lot of people in their 40s
Yeah.
and 50s and even 30s that this has happened to over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a bloodbath. And these are people that will say this isn't a tool because it's deciding for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a, it's a serious issue and it's a real, there's a real dividing line, really, in that sense, because once a company, a corporation or something has given themselves over to working with that, they're no longer dependent upon these people who've done this work for years. And so, as you're pointing out, a number of jobs are just going to disappear. I mean, and people will say that this is always what technology has done, manufacturing has done or whatever, that jobs have disappeared and then they've been replaced with other jobs. But I think one of the things that we find troubling about it is exactly what you're saying, is that it's making the decisions for us. And so the human element is kind of, while there's a decision factor, somebody's there going to say, well, we'll use this rather than this, that generative aspect that comes from the human imagination with all its foibles, with all its limitations, with all of that's the stuff that makes us human, you know, all of that stuff it's the way that we too have a mind that's filled with imagery, right? That we've gleaned from all of our influences, like AI does. AI has access to every image ever made in the history of the planet. Okay, great. We have access to a certain amount of information. We make choices ourselves, like AI would, but there is this idiosyncratic element that goes into our choices, into what you choose, what I choose, what makes us different from one another, what makes us human. And through the use of AI, we begin to lose something of that, of that eccentricity, that comes out of human choice and human foible and human mistakes. And I mean, some of the best stuff I've ever done in my life came out of mistakes I made, and the realization that that mistake might have been a serious fuck up for this piece, but it really opens up some territory on that next piece, There's something, there's something, and again, I'm speaking as one who's not using AI, I'm not using it. I mean, I use it on Google when I do a search, right, for something, because AI comes up with all of these responses, but and then you start looking for other responses, but it I'm not using it in the work I do because I'm at an age where I'm like, well, I just do what I do, and it's not part of what I do, and I'm not going to make it because honestly, there's enough to do with what I already do,
Yeah.
and I'm not interested in I've seen some stuff through AI that's very interesting, but also feels very canned, you know? Like there's this otherworldly quality to it that you can identify as AI. It's really disturbing in a way, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I'll go so far as to say I'm kind of a doomer,
Mhm.
about AI, which is the term that gets thrown around. And I'm fairly knowledgeable about the evolution of it because of the field I've been in.
Mhm.
So AI or generative AI imaging came out of the field of digital imaging,
Mhm.
and in fact drove just general broader AI because the chips that are used are graphics chips.
Mhm. Right.
So if you look at like what's driving ChatGPT And, all of these various AI programs that these major labs and companies like Google and Microsoft and Meta are undertaking, they're all done on graphics chips from NVIDIA. And people in digital imaging are super familiar with NVIDIA because we've been using NVIDIA for many years to drive, the graphics workstations that we've used. And we've also, like I ran an imaging department at a big corporation in New York for years. And it was very incumbent on us to follow the evolution of these technologies in real time. So we were expected to know not just what was happening, but what was coming down the pike because of the impact that it would have on our departments.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been following this stuff, and I've been interested anyway. I would have followed it probably anyway, but I've had to follow this stuff pretty closely for a long time. And when we talk about it's canned or it lacks idiosyncratic human touches and things like this, I think we're actually understating the danger of this.
So we'll leave it there for now because this is a long interview, and so we'll come back to it next time. Hopefully, maybe next week even. I'll put up a new episode featuring Kevin and myself, continuing our discussion about everything under the sun, right? We're talking not only about the Moon Prince, which is a terrific book, but we're also talking about politics. We're talking about AI and technology. Kevin knows a lot about about AI and its potential impact. So it's an interesting discussion, and I hope you'll come back for it. Following that, I'm looking to having a cartoonist roundtable with several different cartoonists, all of whom work politically. And so this will be an episode about, more or less, what a cartoonist do during the days of this administration. And how do we deal with it? How do we grapple with it? What can we do? And so I'm going to have an interesting discussion with several different cartoonists, and I hope you'll look for that, hopefully sometime by the end of the month, beginning of October. And I hope we're all still here by then. So anyway, look for that, okay? So Blockhead is coming back, and I hope that you'll stick around, because I'm hopefully got some good shows lined up. And that being said, I hope you'll continue to look for my work. Look for me on Substack. Let me see if I can find out where the heck I am on Substack. What the heck is my name? If you look for Pencilhead, right? Pencilhead is my newsletter, and it comes out irregularly, but you can follow basically everything I'm doing there. Because I like to write a little bit, and I'm also going to be serializing. I think I'm going to be serializing the book I'm working on. It's called Nice Work, and it is a book I've been working on and off since 2006, and it's substantially revised, and it's a both graphic novel and a prose novel combined together. So I hope you look for that on Substack, okay, because that's where I'll be serializing it. Pencilhead is my name, and you can find me there. So in the meantime, you want to be friends with me on Instagram. I'm at Grogan Geoff, and I think it's probably the best place to find me. I tried to avoid Instagram as much as possible after last year, but can't do it, so because everybody is there and nobody's on Threads or anyplace else. So find me on Instagram at Grogan Geoff, and GroganGeoff. It'll all be in the show notes. And be on the lookout for part 2 of my discussion with Kevin Mutch about his wonderful book, The Moon Prince and Everything Else Under the Sun. So until then, as always, be safe and be healthy and happy. Have a great week or couple of weeks until I see you again. And as always, thanks for listening.